Thank you.
Yes.
This is review for Mr. Browder, but Ms. Daly, this is new for you, and then Ms. Decker, when she's in here, will be review. Why should we write across the curriculum? A lot of people think it's more essays, it takes too much time, technology makes writing irrelevant, and that y'all need to be grammar experts. But none of that is actually true when it comes to writing across the curriculum. It can be simple. Students gain deeper knowledge of your subject matter when they have to write about your subject matter. It's not simply circling an answer. They have to know the answer to write it. They don't have to know the answer to guess right. And there is research that proves that writing actually aids retention. If you're writing about something, you are more likely to remember it. So instead of just circling your answer, if you have to write your answer, you're good. You can walk from around. Okay. If you're writing, it's going to help your students. We watched this video last year, but I liked it. Ms. Decker or Ms. Daly hadn't seen it. This is what people think we want, us English teachers. It's a couple minutes.
When you first came to this school, we took you on account of a most entertaining essay you wrote about a parrot that belonged to your aunt.
Ah, yes, sir.
Since then, your progress has been disappointing.
I have here your exam papers from this year. Let's take a look at the general paper, shall we? Question 1 was, write an essay about perseverance.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember how you began this essay, Susan?
No, sir.
Read this, it'll help.
General paper, final exam, T. Suter, autumn 1980. Subject, perseverance.
Yes, get on with it.
My aunt, who I live with, has a parrot called Perseverance. One day...
Yes, and you proceed to tell exactly the same story you told when you arrived at this school.
Yes, sir.
Here's a slightly different one. History, question 5.
What was notable about the late 50s?
And your answer? My aunt, who I live with, used to have a parrot, who is now dead. The most notable thing about the late 50s was his enormous appetite. And question 7.
Describe the South Sea bubble and its effect on investment.
Go on.
The South Sea bubble was a large goldfish, and its effects on investment, which was a parrot owned by my aunt, who I live with.
Super! Do you think I am some sort of cretin? Did you think I haven't noticed? It's with whom I live. My aunt with whom I live, not who I live with.
All right. We're not tied up in grammar, okay? We're not tied up in grammar, especially when it comes to writing across the curriculum. Little grammar mistakes are actually okay on their essay. I know that I don't think we're supposed to say that, but when it comes to especially the 7th grade writing test, the 4 scores, the highest they can get, the perfect papers, the highest scored papers, are more about content than they are about grammar and spelling. So y'all don't need to be grammar experts. Y'all don't need to be, the spelling Nazis and, oh, that's misspelled, that's points off, and go over that detail. It's about getting the information correct. His information wasn't correct, okay? But they were tied up in the little details that we don't care about. I keep forgetting that the mouse is right here.
I'm trying to help. It's funny that you say that because I'm much better at the grammar aspect than I am. So I can go through it. I can grammar check and fix sentences all day long.
Oh, I can't because it bothers me. I hate checking grammar. Ideas. So what I have today for you is I want you to practice something you could do tomorrow in your class. I know you all have class discussions. I know you do. I know you talk about your materials and you talk about what you read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a short article. I tried to keep it short. It's at, I believe, a 6th grade level, so it should be real quick for you to read. But what we're going to do, I tried to get it. It's titled African American and Native American Resistance in 1800. So I tried to make it more U.S. history. I didn't know where y'all were in your class. But what this is, it's going to be read, write, share. All right? And this is a quick grade for you too. If you need those daily grades, now I'm trying to help bring the strugglers up. Read the article over and then put the title. Read the passage, read pages, blah, 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 blah. And then answer the following question and just give them a note card. And what this does for you is that your question should be open-ended and be a question that you're going to use for class discussion anyway. So instead of saying, well, what do you think about this, and having the same person raise their hand to answer, or in Miss Daly's first period class, have the same person just shout out their answer, as right as that answer might be. Kate. She does not raise her hand. Sweetest girl in the world does not raise her hand.
She's always right.
This will also force those non-chairs to participate, even if they don't talk in your class. They have an answer, they wrote it down, they had to do the work that you're discussing. So even if they don't want to share with the class, they at least have it. And then you can collect these note cards and take a grade on them. Depth of knowledge, you can also see where they're at, even if you don't want it to be a grade. You can look at this and be like, well, she got it, she didn't get it. She is way off. She does not understand this, what she read. So what we're going to do, and this is what it could look like, real quick, it could even be a bell ringer. Read the article, that's a long title, and then answer this on your note card. So I'm going to give you an article and a note card, and I'll give you a little bit of time to read and write before we have a mock discussion.
Is this going to be a
It will be a grade. Everything I do is for a grade.
grade?
And especially these little note cards, I don't know how many note cards I've used this year, but when it comes to answering a quick question, having them do it on a note card and collecting it and grading it is so much easier than even having them do it on a piece of paper. Because I can just paper clip them together and keep them by class easily. So I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to look. You're going to read for Native Americans, African Americans wanting to have equal rights to their white counterparts. And then on your note card, I just want you to write whether you use text evidence or not. It's going to be up to you, and that's the way you can do it in your class too. Sometimes you may want text evidence, sometimes you may just want their opinion. How did they try to have equal rights, and what prevented them from getting their rights? And those should all be in the article.
This is almost right over there.
Really?
Mhm.
Yes. It depends on what I want to do with it. If Uzella's really great because they have 4-question quizzes attached to it. And yeah, and, I mean, those quizzes are more difficult questions and they meet different requirements. So if I'm giving them a quiz with it, I will give each kid their own, and they can write all the mark all over it. But if I were doing something like this where y'all aren't circling the answers in the back, I'd probably make a class set. Yeah. I use Nuzella all the time.
Yeah, I use it in my LT class every single day. I just put the assignment in my classroom and
It's also a really easy way to make English cross-curricular. Like we could do this article and meet a whole bunch of English teaks in my room, but this is all social studies. And it doesn't matter, they're reading, they're considering the text, they're meeting that nonfiction requirement. Yeah, I don't care what you write. So I tell the kids too, I'd rather have the work done than gripe over it. As long as I can read it.
no yellow.
Mr. Browder writes in that highlighter, I'm gonna make him redo it.
If I write in that yellow highlighter, I won't be.
Now, before we move on into our actual discussion, the other thing that just adding this note card writing task instead of having a class discussion, it does two really strong things. You can show the depth of understanding per student too. So if I'm looking at Coach Daly's note card, she's filled up the entire front of the note card with little writing. She's going into really good detail and depth about her answer. But yeah, you wrote 4 words, but that's you're still able to see the depth that they're either going to or that they can get to because they're writing the answer. They're not just piggybacking off of somebody else, and they're not just sitting there trying to hope somebody else answers it. The other thing it does is this fast reader, Coach Daly read it, was finished first. And she went into more depth with her answer, but she's still working while Mr. Browder's finishing his reading. So you're not having as many kids off task because kids are required to write. And then if you do have, Miss Decker over here, she writes 4 words and then she starts getting off task and bothering Miss Glosser across the table, I can go up to her and say, you need to go into a little more detail about this. Can you go into more detail on this part? Or I think you need to reword this answer. And that also adds a little bit of classroom management to it, but it keeps the majority of your class engaged in the activity, even if they're not interested in African American and Native American resistance in 1800. They're still participating. They're still on task. They're still working. And even if they're working at their own pace, they're working. And it's quick to see. So there are a lot of benefits to this strategy, and this is not something that you have to rewrite your lessons for. Because I know that y'all have reading. I know that y'all have work that you do. And it may not be tomorrow that you're